Hello, I'm Henry, and I watched a movie. I watched Avengers Age of Ultron, and I would like to talk about it, please. It's hard to say when the MCU jumped the shark, or if it even has, really. I'm sure people already know this stuff, but real quick, jumping the shark is a point in a series, be it a movie series, a book series, a TV series, when things shift. It is a single moment or event after which the overall quality or tone or creative ideas takes a noticeable downward turn. It gets its name from that time the Fonz jumped over a shark on water skis on Happy Days. I'm not sure how much stock I put in it personally. I don't think it's always as cut and dry as a single thing happening in a series and then everything just getting bad from then on out. But it is a nice way of simplifying a series and can give you a clean finishing point if you don't fancy watching the whole thing. The MCU has numerous places where you can argue it jumped the shark, or at least points where you can say, you know what, I'm good, I don't need to watch any more of this. The end of Avengers Endgame is the most obvious one of these points. It was the end of the first full saga of the universe. It wrapped up a majority of the storylines. And it was, and I don't think this is a controversial opinion, the moment the overall quality of the universe took a noticeable decline. The problem here is the act of jumping the shark itself has to be sort of goofy, not really fitting, and overall just bad. And Avengers Endgame is amazing. So I wouldn't say that is jumping the shark. There are individual movies where everything just goes wrong. It's bad. It gets a bad audience reception. It gets a bad critical reception. And the stuff that comes out immediately after it is also bad. And then it looks like that initial bad movie was the shark jump moment. But then something like Guardians 3 comes out and puts a massive spanner in the works by being really, really good. My personal opinion for when the MCU jumped the shark wasn't anything that actually happened in a movie or a TV series. It was something that happened in real life. I think it was the Phase 4 announcement. That was the moment the MCU became somewhat of a parody of itself and the wheels started to fall off on a macro scale. You've said we're already maybe making too many things. Well, here's a million more things. You think the story's over? We'll tell you when the story's over. And as I said with Guardians 3, there are good things that came out after this point. No Way Home, Loki, to name maybe the only other two. But the overall quality was definitely on a downward spiral. Avengers Age of Ultron was not the moment the MCU jumped the shark. It was a slightly weaker moment in phases 1 to 3, but it's not nearly bad enough or silly enough or creatively devoid enough for it to be the moment. And the stuff that came out after it was still brilliant. So there's no argument to be made for this movie to be the MCU shark jump as a whole movie. But there is an argument to be made for aspects of it being the tipping point for certain tendencies in the wider MCU going forward. Tendencies that are dialed down in the good movies that followed and dialed way up to insufferable levels in the bad movies that followed. Quip. Noun. A smart, sarcastic turn or jest. A taunt. A severe retort or comeback. A jibe. The MCU has seemingly always had a quip issue. From day one, there were scenes of genuine, earnest emotion undercut by a snappy line of dialogue or a funny little comment. But it wasn't too bad and didn't detract too much of the overall quality of each movie. That was until, at least in my opinion, Avengers Age of Ultron. This movie was when the quips jumped the shark. And I'm not just saying that because I've locked myself into doing the second movies of series in these videos, but this being the second Avengers movie still fits. No, I'm saying that because of my immediate thoughts after seeing this movie when it first came out. I remember this vividly. I'm driving out of the cinema car park and I say to my mate in the passenger seat, did Ultron feel very Handsome Jack to you? Handsome Jack is a villain in the Borderlands series of video games, primarily Borderlands 2. He is in constant contact with your character over the in-game comm system, and he is a delight. He is insane, he is scary, he is brutal, and most importantly, he is hilarious. But the fact that this was the first comparison my brain went to is telling and not a good thing from an Avengers point of view. Handsome Jack works where Ultron does not. Mainly because the overall tone of the Borderlands universe being significantly more zany than the MCU and significantly less serious than the MCU. Ultron has these deep menacing philosophical views on humanity and the meaning of life. But he'll also make an omelette joke and pretend he forgot the word for children for some reason. Whereas Handsome Jack is just a stream of balls to the walls mental consciousness. Tonal dissonance versus tonal harmony. Funnily enough though, the Borderlands series and the MCU have both had similar recent trajectories when it comes to quip quality wise. All the games that came out after Borderlands 2 cranked up the comedy and the zingers to basically unplayable levels, and a number of the movies that came out after Age of Ultron also cranked up their humour much to their detriment. Now obviously Joss Whedon didn't just play Borderlands and say, yeah, let's just do that, but he did write a movie whose tone, several years down the line, allowed Thor Love and Thunder to exist. So what we're going to do here is look at Age of Ultron in detail and the quips therein. Specifically, the characters spouting those quips. I mentioned Ultron himself being the character that sparked this quip shark jump theory in me. But there are other characters in this movie. Who is the worst quip offender? Okay, so how are we going to do this? Well, many moons ago, I made a video looking for the most magical character in Harry Potter. It was a bad video, and thankfully not many people watched it, so it should be scrubbed from the internet. But what I did in that video was watch all the Harry Potter movies and count how many spells each character does. Then, to make it fair, I took each character's number of spells and divided it by their screen time. That gave me a simple ranked list with the most magical character in Harry Potter at the top. If you're curious, it was Mad Eye Moody. And yes, it does take into account all the Peter Crouch Jr. stuff. So that's what we're going to do here. I've watched Avengers Age of Ultron and counted every quip every character says, using that definition of quip I recited earlier. Basically anything flippant or witty or humorous in a forced sort of way. And back-to-back quips will count if they're in the same sentence, as long as the subject sort of changes. It's all a bit nebulous. Then, thanks to an absolute hero over at IMDb, what was their name again? JME's Plan. Serious. Thanks to JME's plan, we can divide each character's quip count by their screen time. That will give us a level playing field and the definitive worst offender in the Marvel movie that brought quipping to new heights. Let's go from the bottom up with the least offensive person first, working our way up to the worst offender. In last place, though I suppose from the tone of this video this is kind of first place, with 0 quips in 29 minutes and 59 seconds of screen time, giving her 0 quips per minute, Scarlet Witch. A very serious character, considered putting the I want the big one line in, but it's sort of said in anger and doesn't quite fit. Also with 0 quips per minute, Heimdall and Peggy Carter. These three are in this order because of their screen time. Scarlet Witch is at the bottom, making her the best because she restrains herself for longer, followed by Heimdall's 35 seconds of screen time and Agent Carter's 20 seconds of screen time. Next, with 0.17 quips per minute, it's Bruce Banner / the Hulk. It's hard to quip when half your screen time you are a big green monster who can't really talk. Quicksilver's next with 0.22 quips per minute, quipping with his dying breath, a way we can all hope to go. Though I'm not saving no boy wearing no Sondico shirt. Another Avenger next, Captain America. A lot of his quips came in the second half of the movie. And with 50 minutes and 24 seconds of screen time, you see him more than any other character in the film. With only 1 quip in her 3 minutes and 45 seconds of screen time, it's Laura Barton, giving her 0.27 quips per minute. Big jump now to Jarvis / Vision with 0.46 quips per minute. The screen time list lumped these two together, and I kind of agree. They're kind of the same guy, and they're both played by Paul Bettany. With 0.48 quips per minute, it's Black Widow. She has the first quip of the whole movie. At long last is getting a little long, boys. Into the 0.5s with Thor's 0.56 quips per minute. This is before Ragnarok, remember. This is still Dark World Thor, when he was still quite serious and not a total goofball. Helen Cho. Where did she go after this movie? She made the thing that made Vision. 0.62 quips per minute, by the way. Hawkeye's next with 0.7 quips per minute. I feel like the city is flying and I have a bow and arrow bit is so quippy it should count as 2, but it's also so good that it should count as nothing, so we'll just call it 1. 0.5 quips per minute for Claw. The whole cuttlefish bit really could have been forced and unfunny if it wasn't for national treasure Andy Serkis saying it, with exactly 1 quip and exactly 1 minute of screen time, giving him exactly 1 quip per minute. It's Selvig. And now I think we cross a line, because next, with 1.01 quips per minute, it's Tony Stark. And I know that whole line crossing thing may seem just simply untrue, but you really do notice that 0.01 extra here and everything going forward from here. Tony has by far the most quips in the movie, unsurprisingly, with 46, but that's offset by him having the second highest screen time behind Captain America. 46 is a lot of quips. But that being said, the woodcutting scene is actually really good. Minimal quips. Dramatic, character-driven, character highlighting, with the little "don't take from my pile" joke at the end. Perfect. Tony and Bruce talking about putting Jarvis into Vision. Also perfect. Minimal quips. Dialogue that pushes the plot forward while still being engaging and quick, without being forced and unfunny. Scenes like this are in the minority, however, especially when we're dealing with our next character. With 1.1 quips per minute is the character whose forced witticism spawned this video, Ultron. Rewatching the movie for this video was really eye-opening and makes me think Joss Nasty Ratman Whedon really did copy Handsome Jack from Borderlands 2. And I know Ultron gets his personality from Tony Stark, but bro, this is too much. The whole "children lost the word there" line is the most egregious and is about as Handsome Jack as you get. And it makes no sense when you think about the omniscient robot saying it. Maria Hill is next with 1.14 quips per minute, and to reiterate, crossing the 1 quips per minute line is still really noticeable, even in cases like Maria Hill's and in the next character, Falcon, despite both having relatively small quip counts. Into the top 3, Strucker with 1.33 quips per minute, with 2 quips in 1 minute and 30 seconds of screen time. At 2, it's Nick Fury with 1.71 quips per minute. He had 6 quips in 3 minutes and 50 seconds. A minute is not a long time. I should say that at some point here. It is a really short amount of time. An average song is 3 minutes and 50 seconds long. And imagine if that song had 6 zingers crammed into it. You'd be like, Apple Music must have shuffled me onto some kind of comedy podcast. And at number 1, with a titanic 2.18 quips per minute, with 6 quips in just 2 minutes and 45 seconds of screen time, it is War Machine, or should I say Wit Machine. It is actually pretty startling, the sheer volume and velocity of this guy's jokes. And being someone who is a side character even in the standalone Iron Man movies, and an even more minor character in the big team movies, it really affects his QPM. He basically says nothing but jokes, which brings me to something else. War Machine has the highest quips per minute in the movie that I think was the MCU jumping the shark in regards to the forced wit of its dialogue. But I'm not sure this is entirely fair. You can have screen time without saying anything at all. So what would this table look like if instead of quips per minute, it was quips per line in the script? This is what it would look like. And War Machine's still at the top. James Rhodes is the undisputed king of quips. 0.3 quips per line. Basically, every time he speaks, there is a 30% chance he will make a joke. That is outrageous. Ultron, Claw and Tony are not too far behind him now, which I think is a much fairer reflection of the relentlessly witty tone of these characters. While Nick Fury and Maria Hill drop off quite significantly, showing they had some serious things to say too. And it's not on the list, but shout out to Friday's Sokovia's going, ooh no, hang on, we should do this in an Irish accent. If you see a Garda coming at you with a gun, you're fine, because you know he'll never use it. Shout out to Friday's Sokovia's going for a ride line. Obviously, this is just a bit of fun. Can we call this fun? I'm not saying movie scripts need to be devoid of all humour. I'm not saying there's no room for levity and that all dialogue needs to be business, business, business. But I think there is a balance to be struck. We can see that balance here in places. Some members of the team are all quips, some of them are not. That's fine. That's good, in fact. It's when the quippy ones start going overboard that it becomes an issue. When the team members who are all quips cannot be stopped, but you kind of really want them to. We mentioned it when we were going over the list, but I think anything over a quip per minute is too much. So if you're out there and you're in the process of making a movie and you're watching this video for some reason, that's what you should be aiming for. Otherwise, you'll end up with a character like Ultron, who is so pointlessly and aggressively quippy that he comes across as a satirical take on a modern superhero movie character. And you don't want that. Hello, thanks a lot for getting to the end of the video. Like and subscribe and all that. The schedule is still going strong despite the Euros sort of hampering productivity, but we're still meeting deadlines, it's fine. I'm recording this a couple of days before the England-Switzerland game. It's coming home. I don't think anyone has said that with less conviction.